Welcome to ThinkTech, raising public awareness about technology, energy, globalism, and diversification. As part of the ThinkTech series, today's show is Global Connections. I'm your host, Carlos Juarez. Joining me today is Jerry Agrusa, a professor of travel industry management at Hawaii Pacific University. Today we're going to talk about issues related to tourism in Southeast Asia. Remember that we broadcast live on the internet at 2 and 4 p.m. every weekday. All of our shows are streamed on ustream.tv and Spreaker.com. If you want the links to our live streams and our previous broadcasts, just go to thinktechhawaii.com. And if you'd like to join us in our downtown studio gallery for any of our shows, just write to j@thinktechhawaii.com. We're joined today by Jerry Agrusa. Dr. Agrusa is a professor at the HPU here in the area of travel industry management and one of the leading experts on hospitality management, issues related to tourism. He's also a prolific author, very widely published in many academic journals, and another area, and we can maybe talk about this later, you've been involved for many years here in Honolulu, helping to monitor the impact of the marathon, one of the key events that we bring every year. You travel quite a bit throughout the region of Asia and other parts, and so we're very excited to share a conversation today, learn a little bit about what you've recently come back from. You had a trip that took you to many parts of Southeast Asia. But before, let me just ask you if you could share just a quick snapshot, some of your own background, your expertise. What exactly do you do in your role as a professor?
Okay, so thank you very much for having me as a guest today. As a professor of travel industry management here, we are in the College of Business at Hawaii Pacific University, and I was very fortunate to have the opportunity to come here since 1989. Mm-hmm. I was actually here when it was Hawaii Pacific College before it was a university, and then finished my doctorate on the mainland at Texas A&M, and then came back in the summers and actually taught at University of Hawaii for 7 years, mm-hmm. 7 summers, not for years. I came in the summertime. I worked at the University of Louisiana as the endowed research professor. So this is how I got my research background, mm-hmm. and we do quite a bit of research on issues both in Hawaii as well as around the world, specifically in Southeast Asia. Mm-hmm. And this last 2 months or so, I was over in Southeast Asia. Specifically, I was a speaker at the Asia CRE conference in Macau.
What is CRE? What does that stand for?
The Council for Hospitality Restaurant Industry Educators.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah, and then we also had our annual conference for APTA, Asia Pacific Tourism Association, mm-hmm. and I'm fortunate to be represent the United States, and I'm on the board of directors for them. And we had our this year's conference in Bangkok. Next year we'll have it in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, and then next year after that it'll be in KL in Malaysia. Okay. So we move around every year, mm-hmm. and this last summer was very exciting because I worked with a number of researchers from 2 major universities in Thailand. One is Thammasat University, and the other one is NIDA, which is the National Institute of Development Association, which is sponsored by the King of Thailand. So they have only master's and PhD students that I work with, and so we're getting a lot of research done.
Right. Yeah. And it's fascinating because, of course, we know in Hawaii this is one of our, it's our premier industry, but as you make clear, it's an area that also has a lot of people focusing on it in terms of scholarly activity, helping train the new generation of people who go into this industry. And, what I'd like to maybe turn to now, since you've just come back recently from Thailand and other areas, you also traveled to some other regions of Southeast Asia. I'd like if you could just give us a snapshot. I mean, what are some of the issues? What are some of the things that are on the agenda, and particularly for Hawaii, we see some of them that may be either opportunities for either deepening links or connections, or potentially maybe threats as other places expand tourism opportunities. How will that impact Hawaii?
Well, yeah. First, some of the opportunities. I think that the biggest opportunity was when I finished speaking at the conference in Macau. We went to Burma, or Myanmar.
Myanmar, yes.
And Myanmar has just opened up its doors. And fortunately, Hawaii Pacific University is one of the 11 universities that was selected by President Barack Obama to help them rebuild their university system. So we have actually an alumni, a former student of yours, Sai, who actually works at the U.S. Embassy. I contacted him that I was going. He arranged a meeting with one of the Minister of Tourism, and we had lunch and talked. And what they did was, unfortunately, the military dictatorship actually closed all the universities for about 17 years. So now they're starting to reopen them, and you have nobody to train anyone.
Yeah.
And also, because they just opened up the gates, there's a huge flood of tourists that are going there because no one had an opportunity to go there before. So one of the things that I was trying to help with is both with the tourism planning as well as with some of the training to help share with them what we've done in research in the past that was done correctly and what was done incorrectly. So hopefully they don't fall through the same cracks or do the same pitfalls that we found in other areas that the tourism development. So and how some of the ways that they can attract higher spending tourists or tourists that are better. As for then the next trip, I went to Thailand and then went to Laos, Cambodia, and looking at some of the development there. And there's a huge amount of growth in tourism in Southeast Asia now, and one of the biggest players is because of China. China's opening up the doors. There's just so many more people with money.
So many of these tourists
are
Chinese. There are Chinese.
Yes, there's Chinese everywhere. There's Chinese. When we went to Laos, there was all Chinese. When we went to even in Myanmar, there were Chinese. They were the majority of the tourists that I saw. Besides business travelers, there were Chinese tourists that were going there. And you can see that they have, one of the things that these areas have to learn is that how to deal with Chinese tourists. What are some of the things that they're looking for? We're having that here in Hawaii. One of the biggest challenges, though, for Hawaii or the United States as a whole is still the visa issue. I did a study about 2 years ago on Chinese tourists to Hawaii, and we looked at some of the challenges that they faced, and one of the biggest ones at that time was the direct flights.
Yeah,
but now we've overcome that. There's China Eastern Airlines as well as some other airlines that have direct flights to Hawaii now. So that's one of the things that are doing. But the visa is still there. They still have to apply. It costs $160. They have to go for a personal interview, and sometimes they're denied. And sometimes they're not told until a week or two before they travel. So that means the travel agents have to scramble.
Yeah.
Well, if they want to go to Australia or some other Thailand, they don't have to. There's no visa requirement. So it's much easier for them. So that's actually a threat for us, because this new market that just keeps growing and growing and growing of potential tourists, there's still challenges here. Now, there have been some folks that have addressed this and looked at it very well. Sheraton, for instance, hired a person that's an expert in Chinese, both culture as well as what are some of the marketing they've done, and they've really tapped into that market. And when they had the APEC here, that's where the premier Chinese folks stayed. So that put a big good check mark next to it, so they say, oh, let's go stay there.
If the leader came here,
right, this must be good.
Me.
It must be good. It's good enough for the big top dog. It's good enough for us.
So tell me maybe a little bit about that, because we often hear in Hawaii, oh, the Chinese are coming. Now, today, they remain still a pretty small fraction of our tourists. It's not overwhelming the traditional tourists.
That is correct. And one of the things that you hear all the time is, what are some of the complaints? Because that's what if you don't hear the complaint, you can't address it. Right? So what we did was, in some of the research that we've done in the past, is that we asked them, how can we make it better? And one of the biggest things is the language. We have people that can speak Cantonese, but not Mandarin, because they come from Hong Kong, a lot of the immigrants. So they were missing that. And they feel actually shorted because all the signs are in Japanese. Well, we get 2 million Japanese tourists. We'll maybe hit 140,000 Chinese tourists this year. So there's a huge difference. And we've had that over 1 million, 1.3 million, 1.5 million, 2 million tourists for many, many years from Japan. They're a major international market. So you can't have everything match what the Chinese want right away, because they just haven't had that longevity. And the mass. Right. So they feel slighted.
But in these other areas, like you described, areas in Southeast Asia, I mean, they are the majority
of the tourists. It seems that the new tourists, they're the majority of the new tourists coming. But they have the same thing, language barrier. One of the things about Chinese tourists I always compare to is American tourists. Americans travel, expect everybody to speak English. Chinese tourists travel, they expect everybody to speak Chinese. We're the tourist, we have the money, you need to answer to us. And if you look back 20, 30 years ago in Europe, that was one of the things. The American tourists would come, we have the dollar, we have the greenback, and now the Chinese, they have the money, they expect it.
And it's not easy. We don't have as many people studying the language, working in the industry here.
Right. And we have that's one of the shortages here in Hawaii. We don't have people that work in our industry that speak Mandarin.
Yeah. Now, what about? Tell us a little bit about your impressions of like the pulse or the vibe, or we are now 5 years or plus since we've had an economic stagnation, a crisis that we're now getting out of. Parts of Europe are in deep economic
Deep trouble.
trouble. Do you sense any sense of economic crisis in some of these countries, or is there?
Well, they were
more?
hit too. They were hit too, because don't forget, when you had Europe hit and you had the United States hit, we are major travelers.
Yeah.
So those places were hit very hard. So they're coming out, but not as fast as, say, for instance, Hawaii. Hawaii's tourism now is rolling. It's rolling. Go down to Waikiki. Try to find a hotel room. And you look at the prices, you're like, oh my gosh, up 12% from last year, 17% from the year before that. It's just very, very, the only way you can charge more for the room is if there's the demand. And there is demand. These hotels are bursting at the seams. Well, look at Ala Moana Mall. It's full of tourists.
So this year we're
going to have, this is going to be a record year.
Record.
I think this might be the highest year ever in revenue for hotels. I believe.
Yeah.
And we have a long time left. Right?
Now,
4 months.
yeah. Now tell me a little bit about, as you're there in these Asian countries most recently. What are some of the things that they might look to? Because you come from Hawaii, which has this large
Right.
industry, and there's a sense of, well, what knowledge can you share with us? What are some lessons or best practices, or like you described, you come with some research that's been done to show here's some examples of don't do's, or here's some
Correct.
success stories.
And we have that, one of the aloha spirit, and hospitality in Hawaii is world renowned. Part of what we have here in Hawaii is people are just nicer. One of the reasons is the weather. We have great weather. Today's a little warm, but every day we have great weather. And because of that, people just walk around happier. It's just the way it is. You have a place where it's snow and cold and 40 below zero, you're just not happy on 40 below zero. It just doesn't happen. So we have this constant good weather, so people are happy, and it's the aloha spirit. It's just out there. So when we go, we try to share what needs to be done to be that way. Now, there are certain cultures that are very easy for them to fill in that way. For instance, Thailand. The Thais are very accommodating, very warm, friendly,
yes.
Smiley. It's called the land of smiles. They've never been invaded, unlike Vietnam or Cambodia. Right. And no major war recently within the last generation
So
or
a pretty
two.
peaceful and happy country.
Right. So they're it's easy for them to go that way. And their growth in tourism is very high, specifically in the South, that is a direct competitor with us, with the Phuket and the islands. One of the things that just came yesterday, I got an email requesting help. Outrigger's is opening up a new hotel in Phuket, and they have their handbook, and they wanted us at the school to find somebody who has Thai, who grew up with Thai culture, to make sure that the examples that they use, even though it's in English, that they were culturally accepted, so that they understood some of the scenarios that we're on. So, Outrigger's now opening up this new hotel, and they're doing their training manual, and they're at least looking to make sure that when people use these examples, that it matches. So AHPU has got some former students that are going to help them with this. So that's a direct competitor. One of the things that Outrigger is doing is that they're actually looking for growth. They're in Southeast Asia. They're in, to build a hotel takes a long time. So they built that one there. They're building one in Vietnam. They're looking at Bali. They're looking at Australia more. They have a couple of properties there, and New Zealand. So they understand that this is the growth area, and that's what's happening with Outrigger. So Outrigger it's a family-owned operation, and they haven't been in existence for 50 years by not being smart, right? So they saw this trend coming, and they wanted to go in that direction. And I think that they're going to be successful in it. So those would be one of the competitors, but I think that specifically South Thailand, we have a little different. One of the good things we have that they don't have, just like when we compete with Mexico, they have great beaches. We have great beaches. We can drink the water. You can't drink the water, and. That's one of the things when they travel, then they're looking at safety. When they talk safety, they're not always...
No beheadings in Hawaii.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
And they're not only worried about just beheadings. They're worried about, can I eat the food?
Yeah.
Can I drink the water? Will I be sick for 2 or 3 days and have to be near the restroom all the time? And this is a major factor that comes into play when someone's on vacation.
That's right. No. Well, these are important things. As we continue in a moment, I want to really explore this question of the role of culture, its impact, and how it plays in the tourism area. We're going to take a break right now as we are, a short break. This is the Global Connection Show, part of the ThinkTech radio series. We're talking with Jerry Agrusa about tourism issues in Southeast Asia. We'll be back in just a minute, so stay tuned for more of the story.
We want to thank our underwriters.
Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Maui Electric on Maui and Hawaii Electric Light Company on Hawaii Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve.
Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company.
The High Tech Development Corporation, the state's leading technology agency, attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism.
Castle and Cook Hawaii, with a time-honored legacy that spans more than 160 years and revolves around its mission of investing in Hawaii, creating communities, and providing for the needs of our state.
Hawaii Gas, formerly the Gas Company, a proponent of the Liquefied Natural Gas Initiative, helping Hawaii achieve its transition to clean energy and a better energy future.
Collateral Analytics, a Hawaii-based tech company empowering the real estate industry with greater and faster access to the tools and data they need to make better informed property investment decisions.
I'm Nicole Horry. Thanks so much for joining us on ThinkTech.
I'm Maria Kashem. See you next time.
And we're back. We're live. We're ThinkTech, and it's Global Connections on the ThinkTech radio series. We're talking about tourism issues in Southeast Asia, joined by Jerry Agrusa, who's an eminent scholar. You've done, quite a long lifetime work of not just your scholarship, but even in past times. I know you were yourself directly involved. It's important for especially someone in your field to have actually some practice experience. Maybe way back when you had opportunities in different parts of the world to be directly involved in it.
Yeah.
Could you mention one or two
Okay,
places?
one of the first things that happened when I had the opportunity to come to Hawaii Pacific College, I moved here in 1989. I just left industry. Got hurt. That's how I got back into school. I actually fell off a curb and had to be in a hospital and 9 months in a cast, so I couldn't walk. And somebody came to me and said, "Go get your master's degree." And I got that, and then somebody offered me a job, and I was thinking, industry make money, teach, not make so much money, but Hawaii. So I chose Hawaii. And when I came here, they were telling me how powerful the union was at here in the hotel industry. And prior, I've worked at Marriott and Hilton, and I thought, no, there's no way. And there was a gentleman that worked at HPU as an adjunct, and he said to me, I'll get you a job. So I actually was a banquet waiter at nights and on weekends while I was a professor during the day, because I'm a short person and I was skinnier then, so I looked much younger. So nobody knew. And I actually worked as an employee, and just to see how strong the union was and how some of the challenges that management had to deal with. And until you experience it, you'll never know.
Yeah.
You'll never know. And I came from one side of it, and then I went on to the management side. But I was a banquet waiter, and it was quite interesting, especially in late 80s, early 90s, when there was just so much Japanese tourists. They would come with these big banquets, and it was just, it was interesting. And then I could share some of those experiences with the class now, and it helps when you have.
I think that's important because, again, you are by any measure an important scholar, but you've also got this practitioner side. You know what it's like in the trenches, and maybe more to the point, your recent travels that took you back to Southeast Asia. You're there, obviously consulting and presenting and talking about the tourism industry, but you're also experiencing some interesting dynamics. Tell us a little bit. You were in, was it in Myanmar where you saw some interesting events?
What happened was I was flying from Bangkok to Miramar. It was very challenging to get the visa because they told me it would take 3 weeks, and then we tried to get it from here, and then when I actually stopped in the Philippines. I tried to use Hawaiian Airlines as my base because they were flying into Manila, and then they actually ended that flight. Now they don't use that anymore, but we're using that as a base, so we went Manila, Macau. So when we were in Manila, we went to the Miramar embassy, and they said, "Oh, it'll take 2 weeks to get the thing." I said, "I'm only here for 3 days before I go to Macau." So finally, when we were in Macau, one of my other friends who's a faculty member, he says, "Let's just go to the embassy in Hong Kong. Let's go try." So when we went there, they said, "Oh, you need to do this and this." And we said, "Look, we have all this stuff. We just want to go for a couple of days. We just want to help you." And they were able to give us the visa in 1 day. Bam. So we flew from Macau to Bangkok, and then Bangkok to Miramar. On our flight from Bangkok to Miramar, when we're getting on the plane, I look in first class, they're all monks in their orange. Not just all monks with iPads. It was just the most amazing thing. Not one, all of them were either on an iPhone or an iPad. Chick, 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 chick. And I'm like, is there something wrong here? And then we went into the back, and then, because they have such famous temples, and these were not Burmese, these were actually Thais that were going as part of a pilgrimage to go there, part of a religious. And I thought that was quite interesting that that was there. And you could see that the people in Miramar are still very, very hesitant to talk to outsiders.
Well, it's a long period of authoritarian rule, and while some are opening up, I think many are still cautious.
They're very cautious, and especially when you speak to them, and they don't want their picture taken. They don't like cameras. They were really. We were like, we're just professors. We're just walking around, and you could see, nope. People were getting very, very nervous at certain places, and you can't take pictures of any military, which are every 5 feet. And what happened was, when I went to the U.S. Embassy to say hello to Sai and to just let them know we were in the country and we're going to meet with, and all of a sudden there was an alert. It went from up to orange alert, which is the second highest. What happened was, on the western part of the country, there was a little bit of a riot. And what happened was, actually these monks killed some Muslims. So these are angry monks killing Muslims. So anytime anything happens with Muslims, America, they get up. So by the time we got back to the hotel, so the embassy, they locked down. You couldn't go anywhere or anything. Then they let us out. When we got to our hotel, outside our hotel was this giant army trucks with all these army guys with those shields, and I was just like, whoa. And they were worried that there might be some kind of reprisal for this. And this is a real issue that's happening, but we're kind of left out on it. But everybody thinks, last year I had the opportunity to go to Indonesia, and I spoke at a university, and one of the students at my presentation, who was Indonesian, he raised his hand, he goes, "Why do you hate us?" I said, "What?" He goes, "All Americans hate us because we're Muslim." I said, "No." So in their minds, they think this way because of the war in Middle East and whoever's telling them this propaganda. And then we have the same in our country too. We have people that just because someone's different, they dislike them. So, I mean, that type of thing is now, because there's a minority population in Burma that's Muslim, that they have to worry about this. And as Americans, anytime something happens like that, we had a threat a few weeks ago. All the embassies in the Middle East got shut down. Not for a day, for a week. And some of them are still shut. So if you're an American and you're in one of those countries, you can't go for help for anywhere. You lose your passport, someone's sick, someone might get arrested. That's what the embassy is supposed to be to help.
No, it's a challenge there.
Yeah.
Well, let me turn us to now. One of the things that I think I'd like to ask of you is, what role does culture play, or how does it play out even in, let's say, the literature that you work with and help produce? What do we know, let's say, from our experience, that if you're in a hotel manager or a restaurant manager, I mean, what should you know about culture? Why is it important? What are sort of do's and don'ts, and how do you train the generation of people in this industry? I mean, what are the skills they need?
Right. I think one of the biggest challenges is to try to understand that there are differences in cultures. And just because you do it your way, one way, even if it's more efficient, if it doesn't match the culture, we have a problem. I'll give an example. We had a gentleman that was from Austria, actually trained in Switzerland, then came HPU, and then he went and got this job with this major hotel chain in India, a 5-star chain. So when he gets there, one of the things about India is the labor is very inexpensive. Maybe $2 a day for a waiter or a busboy. You only have to pay $2 a day. I mean, in Thailand, the average salary for any worker in a hotel is 300 baht a day. That's for the front desk, that's for a waiter, 300 baht is $10. And they work 10 hours for $10. So that doesn't include tips. There's a service charge, and they get some more if they with that. But overall, it's $10. In India, it's only $2. So when he came in, he saw that there was all this staff. For one table, there might be 4 or 5 wait staff, because a big round table of 10 people, there'll be 4 or 5 staff. One person is to pour the water. Another person is just to talk to everybody. Oh, you look good today, sir. You look good today. You know, just to do a little bit of a brown nosing. And then there's the people who do the order. So he came with the mentality is 1 waiter for 2 tables. So he immediately cut the staff.
Yeah, pretty efficient.
Yeah, he was being efficient. He was doing that Austrian German thing. We're going to be efficient. We can do this. The problem is when the people came in to eat, they're used to having somebody, as soon as you snap your finger, there's somebody there.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? There was nobody there then. So he saved payroll, but sales plummeted, and they ended up transferring him out. And it just didn't match.
Yeah.
And the same thing can happen here. We have in the cases over the years, we've had people that come not understanding how Hawaii works, how, like for instance, Talk Story, right? When I first worked at the University of Hawaii, I was fortunate that somebody explained to me, when you need something from a secretary or administrator, before you go in there, you say, hi, how are you today? You look nice today. Oh, could you get me this? Unlike in the East Coast, where I grew up, you walk in there and you say, I need that paper, like, because it's quick. Well, guess what? If you do that here, you might get the paper that day, but all the other times you go there, I'll be right with you when they walk away. So this is a cultural difference.
Yeah.
And the same thing happens throughout. What's happened is you have this new tourism development in areas that people haven't been trained.
Yeah.
So the managers are coming in from the outside. And because of that, they don't understand all the cultural things. And like for instance, last year we did some work in the Maldives. The Maldives Islands, one of the biggest challenges is workers, trained workers. And what happened is they bring all these expats in, and for instance, a Maldivian, only men could be work in housekeeping. Women are not allowed to go in other people's room because it's Islamic country, and this is one of the rules. Yet, Maldivian males will not clean toilets of other people. So now we have to bring in another thing. So they bring in Bangladesh. So the Bangladeshis are below them, or Sri Lankans, and then there's Bangladeshis. So there's the resorts are all on islands. So everybody lives there. Nobody leaves. So you have this clash of cultures, and the majority of the workers are males. So you have all these men on an island, very few women, and no women from their background, only Maldivian females. So there's this testosterone and all these problems. And when the expatriate manager comes in, he could come from India, or he might come from the United States, or he might come from Australia, not understanding that there's a hierarchy because this is the Maldives, and Maldivians have to be top. Even if they're not really top, you have to let them perceive that. Then we have some problems.
So it takes a lot of work to understand
Sure.
this. Yeah, and I think, as you said earlier, one, you might begin by recognizing that culture is important and matters, and if we don't pay attention, conflicts may arise.
Of course, and then you have, you can have problems with the employees with each other. I did a study maybe 10 years ago on the perceptions of employees in Thailand of the different managers, of Thai managers versus expatriate managers. And what we found out in that research was that the Thais actually, it's easier for them to work for a Thai manager, except they felt that there was too much favoritism, because part of the culture is who knows who. Similar to what we have in Hawaii, you know somebody, someone's cousin, they get a little more skating room. While they like to work when there's challenges or there's discipline or there's rewards, they want to work for the expatriate because they have a line of what it is. You earn this because of this, not because you're my friend's brother or your cousin or your sister's aunt made something. Yeah, right. So we found that out. So there has to be a way that when we have that, when we bring these expatriate managers in, as well as when we train the new managers, this is what the employees are feeling.
Yeah. And I mean, this has got to be a tremendous challenge and a continual one, because it's not like you just learn it and you know it. You have to constantly be practicing it and training new people. I mean, as a manager, your role is to make sure your employees are
and especially when we have such growth in so many areas, and when you have new development areas that just keep growing and growing, that you have to keep moving people. You have to keep moving people. Like employee that we had, this gentleman that was one of our graduates, and he was at the in Bangkok. Then they moved him to Bali. Then they moved him to Malaysia. Now they're moving him to Laos. So there's all different types of how the workers work. But one of the things that we learned when I was in Cambodia this summer was that the Vietnamese workers will work harder. They'll work longer, they won't question. The problem is the Cambodians hate them. So you bring in these workers in the hotel who will work longer, harder, because they need to send money back home, while the local population feels resentment towards them. So there's that conflict in the housekeeping, there's a conflict in the kitchen.
Well, no, these are fascinating topics, and we're going to continue the conversation. We'll take a very short break right now. I'm Carlos Juarez. This is Global Connections in the ThinkTech radio series. We're talking with Jerry Agrusa about a range of issues related to tourism throughout Asia. We'll be back in just another minute, so stay tuned for more of the story.
Hi, my name is Attila Saras, and I'm the host for ThinkTech Friday, a weekly radio show about things that matter to Hawaii. You can tune in every Friday at thinktechhawaii.com.
Hi, I'm Donna Blanchard of Kumukuhua Theater, and when I was young I used to love watching Charlie Chan movies on Family Classic TV on Sunday afternoons. Our show at Kumukuhua that runs from August 22nd through September 22nd is called Will the Real Charlie Chan Please Stand Up? It's written by Nancy P. Moss and takes place right here in Chinatown. I really hope you'll come in and watch it. You will love it. It's everything about the movies that you loved and more. Go to kumukuhua.org to get more information and your tickets. We'll see you there.
I'm David Day, the host of Asian Review. This is a ThinkTech program in which we take the issues of the Asia-Pacific region, whether they be in business, in foreign policy, in national security, or geopolitics. And we take those issues and we try to probe down in some real depth. Maybe it's not always politically correct, but we get to the truth. We do things that the regular media can't do. And the reason that we can do those things is because we here at ThinkTech have the contacts, we have the network, and we can take the time and explore the issues in depth. Tune in every Thursday at 4 p.m. here at ThinkTech Hawaii. I'm David.
Okay, we're back and we're live and we're ThinkTech. It's Global Connections on the ThinkTech radio series. We're talking about tourism in Asia with Jerry Agrusa here, who's had an opportunity very recently to come back from some travels in several parts of Southeast Asia. And I'd like to keep us focused a little bit more on issues of culture, because again, this is so crucial. We live in a world of deepening interconnectedness, more and more people traveling, more types of people. I mean, this is a world today where we have a lot of new money, particularly in parts of Asia, that are now getting out and traveling, and they have different expectations, different norms. Share with us a little bit about what are the things that present challenges for those in this industry when you have new types of tourists. What are some examples?
Well, here, for instance, here in Hawaii, one of the things is we're getting some of the new tourists that are coming here, specifically, say, from Southeast Asia or even in China. In China, they don't tip. Here in Hawaii,
Pake.
Yeah, right, the pake, right? But they don't tip because there's a service charge in the bill. Same with Japanese, same with Australians and New Zealand. They don't tip because there's a service charge, and waiters and waitresses in those countries are paid higher. In the United States, we can pay below minimum wage a waiter or waitress because it made up in tips to match that minimum wage. So if they don't know, the waiter and the waitress afterwards, they don't get a tip. They're like, hey, what's the problem here? And this causes some challenges. Communication is always a challenge. It's always a challenge. And I'll give an example. There was a group, it was a very upscale hotel, and there was a Chinese visitor that was here, and he didn't speak but Chinese. They didn't have anyone at the front desk, so he ran out of toilet paper. So he said on the phone, I need towel. But toilet towel, he said towel. I mean, I can't say towel in Chinese, so everybody should give him credit for at least knowing towel. So they brought up big towels. He says, no, small, for toilet, small. So they brought face cloths.
Yeah, washcloths, yeah.
So he was like, no. They brought more face cloths. So he thought, we're in America.
This is what you
rich.
use.
This is what you use. By using that, he put it in the toilet, flushed it. Well, the first flush went. Then, halfway through the pipe, it stopped. everything started backing up. Flooded the room, flooded down. He's embarrassed. He's trying to stop it with towels at a very high upscale hotel, all because of miscommunication, because no one could speak. They found this out afterwards while they asked the next day, what did happen? And he said, I asked for towel, this is what they gave me, in Chinese to the person who they got the next day who could speak Chinese. So this is a perfect example how it was a cultural difference. He just thought, well, this is America, they have everything, so that's what they use.
That's what they use.
Right,
Wow.
and just on the other side, you have people that might come from places where, for instance, hygiene. Japanese, clean is different in Japan than it is for America. Clean is here. And then if we have employees that might come from other places, their cleanliness is a little different. The fork drops on the floor, they put it back on the table. In Japan, this would never happen. You would not even, you would never touch any of that part. And this is where we have another challenge. I'll give an example. When we're doing our research on Chinese visitors, one of the biggest things is in China, when you want the bill, you snap your finger. Hey, well, you're not so very, waiters and waitresses and bartenders in America really don't appreciate being snapped at. They just don't appreciate that. They get very, very upset about this. And here, that's a good example of where it's a cultural difference, because in China that's accepted. Even in Vietnam, that's accepted. You snap your fingers.
I'm actually reminded, Sai, this person you mentioned in Myanmar, has told me that one of the things that they do there is a little like a chirp with their nows, asking the waiter to come over.
That's how you get the waiter to come over.
Yes, and that, of course, may
if you
not
do that
fly
to a waitress here, unless might get yourself in big trouble.
Yeah, that's right. Well, these are now beyond that. What about just in terms of the, again, maybe particularly with Chinese, but other countries similar, where you have a lot of new wealth, new money, people who are traveling, leaving their country for the first time, and of course, there's the inevitable clash
that they don't understand. Like back just because the Chinese are just so big, that's going in Asia. In Hong Kong, they were talking about how there was a high regency, and these Chinese visitors were from a town where I guess this guy was a mayor and he was important. So now he's in Hong Kong. He expects people to be one. He took his shoes off and he's soaking his feet in the fountain by the front desk, and then cleaning his toes. This fountain is for decoration, not to clean your feet. But to him, he's like, I'm the man. I'm the man.
Yeah.
I'm the man. So this was a cultural difference. You can see also when now you have Koreans that are now traveling. They're actually one of the top tourists to go to Japan. But there's still that conflict from many years ago. And same the other way. The number one tourists to go to casinos in Korea are Japanese, because in Japan they don't have legalized gambling. Is there gambling? Probably. We have gambling in Hawaii, so we're a few blocks away here, but even though it's not legal. But this is one of the biggest things that they go there.
So tensions are going to flare, just old baggage.
Old baggage, right.
Absolutely. I'm wondering maybe just in terms of, here in Hawaii, like in other parts, I mean, we are seeing a large and growing number of foreign students who come to learn, and they come into programs like what you teach about tourism, travel industry. When they are, I guess, getting these skills, because that's what they're doing. They're coming here to gain knowledge and insights. I mean, is there, is there a body of knowledge that is pretty clearly defined, or is it evolving? I mean, you've been in this area.
Well, one of the great things about having, for instance, I teach a cultural tourism class once a year, though, only in the spring semester. And one of the great things in our class is there might be 25 students, and they might represent 15 or 18 different countries. So here the students are learning about other cultures just in the classroom. And that's where it's extremely beneficial. Unlike when I used to teach at Texas A&M, everybody was Texan and mostly white Texan. So they never even left the state.
Yeah.
Why would you leave the state? We have beaches, we have mountains, we have everything Texan. We have barbecue. Why would you leave? So here you have the opportunity to learn about other cultures in the classroom, and that is just so beneficial for the student. And also, just some of the other types of things that you learn when you're working in group projects. One of the things that we do in the College of Business is, especially upper level classes, we constantly give them group projects. That is because in the American system, we don't work well in groups. Unlike Asian system,
Which
Everybody works in groups. They're taught to work in groups since they're little. It's for the group, the group, the group.
Yeah.
Well, in America, we're individual, we're individual, we're individual. Even if you wear uniform, we have to have a different button, string,
stripe or something,
string
yeah.
on our shoe, just to be individuals. And, you know, there's a great book called Outliers that was written, and he always said that that's what helped America get to where it is. That's how we got to Steve Jobs, the Bill Gates, these people, because we have this outside the box. We start to do this, but it's very difficult when we have to work in groups.
Right.
Because
And at the end of the day, I mean, in the workplace, like it or not, while there are hierarchies, people have to work in teams. They have to come
and the
together.
hospitality industry
Yeah.
is extremely that way.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially we have to work not just in the team in the hotel, but the hotel has to work with the restaurants have to work with the transport people people have to work with the airlines. It's all integrated. Here in Hawaii, nobody drives here. Everybody comes by plane. If the airport isn't working right and there's not good movement from the airport to the hotels, we have a huge problem. We have a huge problem because nobody comes by here other than by airplane. And if the fuel keeps going up, or if they try to make money on landing fees so that all the prices just keep rising and rising, we could price ourselves out of the market. The same with the hotels. I've noticed this huge increase in price in hotels, and the same thing happened in 07 and 08. We're going to price ourselves out of the market when you have a price that's half to go to another destination that's similar. People are going to pick it.
Yeah.
Even if we have better water, and even if we have better food, and we have the aloha spirit, if it's half, people are going to pick it. And I thought the same thing happened when we had the crisis at 9/11. When 9/11 happened and everyone was afraid to fly on planes, if the airlines would have cut the price so that it was so low that people would have said, okay, I'll do it. They wouldn't be afraid. Fear goes down with the price.
Yeah.
And if they would have done that, then people would have kept traveling. It would have made all the destinations go, both for business and for tourism, and it would have been the answer. It's just that they couldn't get that around their heads, that it's better to lose money on the airline, but it gets the economy going, gets people keep moving.
It's like a multiplier.
Right.
More.
And you go on planes at that time, there were 3 people on a whole plane. So, you know, instead of canceling the plane, they tried to keep the schedule going to try to keep normalization, but they didn't lower the price.
Yeah.
You'll get people, if the price goes down. Same thing opposite. You keep raising the price, people start looking at it and say, guess what? We want to take a vacation.
Yeah. Now, I wonder, you know, from your vantage point, because you've been in this field quite a long time now, what could you speak to us about the impact of changing technologies like social media, like the internet? Because I'm thinking on one hand today, I'm a regular traveler myself, and I do all my travel plans.
Right.
You know, there are others who only work through a travel agent, but of course today you can do so much on your own. But beyond that, I mean, whether it's reading reviews about places, there's just,
That's it.
you have to be connected to what's going on.
What's happened is that more and more travelers, they're not even bothering to go to travel agency. Here in the United States, the travel agency business, it'll have to be a niche. If you want to be a travel agent, you have to be a niche, whether you're going cruises, safaris, sports, high sports tourism, that type of thing. The regular travel agent, it's just not going to happen. Very few people do it. We do it all on our own. And, you know, that's what the airlines actually push you. They don't even want you to use Travelocity anymore, or Orbitz. They're pushing you to go to Hawaiian's website or United's website. You know, so that's one of the things that's happened. Also, like you said, the reviews. People are no longer just going to a restaurant. I have asked the students, none of my students last semester in 2 of my major classes, a hotel operations class and a food and beverage class, ever went to a restaurant or a club without looking at the review.
Yeah.
None of them. I asked
Amazing.
them. They all looked at the review, and they didn't look at one review. They look at over and over and over. And they look who gave the review. Johnny 29 versus, you know, Jerry 50. Oh, he's old, so forget him. Let's not listen to him. And they really do it.
The
and
impact is amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah. No, this is fascinating. Well, we will continue this. Right now, we'll take another short break. I'm Carlos Juarez. This is Global Connections in the ThinkTech radio series. We're talking with Jerry Agrusa about tourism issues and throughout Asia and just globally. We'll be back in just another short minute, so stay tuned for more of the story.
Aloha, I'm Jay Fidel. This is ThinkTech Hawaii, broadcasting live from the Pioneer Plaza in downtown Honolulu. We raise public awareness about tech, energy, and globalism in Hawaii. Technology is critical to our state. A vibrant tech sector will give us new prospects in the global marketplace and will offer great careers and make our economy more resilient. Streaming live on Ustream and Spreaker, ThinkTech allows its hosts and guests invaluable opportunities to report important events and discuss important questions, and to be heard here in Hawaii and around the world. You can find links to our live streams on thinktechhawaii.com or on our mobile website, m.thinktechhawaii.com. And you can see our archive on YouTube. It's all just a click away. We want to do whatever we can to keep Hawaii relevant, connected, and thriving in the complexity of the 21st century. We hope you will help us in those efforts. Tune in today. This is ThinkTech. I'm Jay Fidel. Mahalo.
And we're live, and we're ThinkTech. This is Global Connections on the ThinkTech radio series, and we're talking about tourism issues with Jerry Agrusa. And Jerry, we were just talking about really the dramatic changes of technology and how it's, in many ways, it's made you and I, anybody can be your own travel agent. I mean, I know when I travel, I certainly do. I mean, you have access to so much more, and as you even described now, the airlines themselves, they want you to go to theirs. There used to be a time not too long ago where you actually could get better deals from these, others. Now the airlines themselves are obviously just
Correct.
as competitive.
What's happened is they caught up.
Yeah,
They caught up. In the beginning, the Orbits, the Travelocities, in Kayak, they were the leaders.
Yeah.
So what's happened is they looked at how much revenue they were losing, and then the airline said, well, just hire, they'll steal somebody from over there,
Yeah.
and they'll build their own website that way. And the same thing with the hotels.
Yeah.
But I'll give you an example. Well, when I was just now in Thailand, I stayed at a Starwood property, and my good friend that was teaching in Jeju Island there, he came over to meet me, and we were going to work for a few weeks. So I called the head of sales and marketing at this hotel that we were staying with, and I said to them, look, he's going to stay for 4 weeks. This is the price that we're looking at on Travelocity. If you can match that, we'll buy it from you.
Yeah.
If not, we're going to go this way. And the young lady came back with a price that was higher. And I just thought, how can you charge more than this outside agent? And they lost the deal because they didn't just lose one room for 30 days, they lost 2 rooms for 30 days. And the revenue went all through Travelocity, and then they only get a portion of that. And I thought, well, maybe she was a little swinging for the fences. But we ended up talking a few more other times with her because we were there for so long. We met all the managers and the general manager and so on. And she has a degree in hospitality from Thailand, though. And I just thought, when I saw her when I was leaving, her name was Air, her nickname. They all have a nickname. Her nickname was Air, and I said to her,
Are you an airhead or what?
No,
you
she's
didn't say
there.
that.
I said to her, you missed out. I said, that's Dr. Limmer over there. She's like, oh, I was supposed to get back to him. I said, well, you missed it. You missed it. And I think that, I know that we sell blocks of rooms to those big travel agencies, same with blocks of airline tickets, but I see that this shift is going on. If you go on Orbitz or Travelocity, very rarely will you find a less expensive flight than you can find directly on Hawaiian Airlines. They've moved to that direction, while before that was the way to go. And with technology, you can book a room, go to the airport, book a hotel room, book an airplane ticket, go to the hotel airport, never talk to a person. Check in. They actually don't want you to talk to people anymore. They have less employees. You can put your bag on the carousel after a thing, get on the plane, put on earphones, don't talk to anybody, get off the plane, go to one of these kiosks at the airport, get your hotel key, and go to a hotel room. Not speak to a person. Now, here in Hawaii, it's different because people come from really long ways and they don't know. So they actually found out that the kiosk, Hilton had it for a while and then they stopped it. But I was talking to some executives, especially at Outrigger, and they said to me, people don't want that. They want that person-to-person speak. But when you're a business traveler or you're traveling to the mainland, if you can not talk to somebody, and they know if you're a frequent stay person at this hotel, they know what room you like, and then your room is waiting for you. You go into a kiosk, you put your credit card in, out comes your room. You know it's that room. You got the card for it.
No, it's a very specialized area, and I think it speaks to also how you have both different types of travelers, the savvy traveler, maybe the regular business one, but in particular, it's just these technologies allow us all to be more savvy, more choice, more
Much more
tailored,
choice.
And clearly the industry has to adapt to that. And
Even shopping, when tourists are shopping, they'll go to Macy's, they'll see a blouse or a purse, and then they put up the smartphone, they look on it for the price that could be on somewhere else, say Nordstrom or actually or whatever I don't even know what people buy on, and I don't buy anything online too much, but look at one of the things, and then they compare the price right there, right there. And same with the hotel. My hotel that I stayed with, that Starwood property, one of the most unique technology things, and I think that you might find this interesting, is that they'll give you a smartphone when you check in, and with that phone you can use it to open the door, you use it to charge things, as well as to turn the TV on and open the curtains. The challenge was that they wanted $20 a day, and you only can use their smartphone. If you had a smartphone, no. It was a Samsung phone, and they would charge you extra $20 to use that. And I'm not a big smartphone guy, so I didn't get it. But I just thought that was it. They have it at the front desk on a pedestal, and you can look at it, and they're trying to push it. But I thought that $20 seemed a little high for something that, I don't use too often. But then it allowed them to make local phone calls as well.
Yeah, no, obviously flexibility and just the changing.
And your phone,
people.
if it rang your room, it will come to that. So whether if you're at the gym or at the pool, or even if you're out, it will relay over.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Big brother there with you everywhere you go.
Yep. And I thought that was unusual. The thing I thought that they should have been able to do is, some people have their own phone. It should have been able to clone or something like that so that they could use it. I had in the past stayed at hotels where I booked a reservation, and my credit card that I used, I could use as a pass card to get into the room.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. That was one of the technology things that I've seen in the past. But I hadn't seen the phone that they had where you can open up, use it for the television and use it for the air conditioning as well.
I wonder, as we wind things down here, I want to think a little bit about what are some of the challenges, some of the future challenges. I mean, we're living in a world of dynamic change. We've described a lot of these things, different tourists, different issues. The fact that so many people are now coming into contact with different cultures in a way that, our parents, our grandparents didn't live in that world. And so we're living in this. It's constant change. You have to be savvy, you have to be educated. But what would you describe are some of the continual challenges that we have? Maybe are there gaps that we still don't know how to deal with, or just any kind of challenges that we're going to face?
I think the biggest gap that the tourism industry will face worldwide is not always checking to see what is done right or done wrong. Because there are times when people will not complain. Something's not right. They won't say anything. All they'll do is go home, get on Yelp, get on Travelocity, and say all the bad things that happen. And what managers need to do is to learn, not just to listen, but to read the customer. I gave you a chicken dish and you didn't eat any of it. The waiter should say, hey, by the way, they didn't eat any of that. Everyone should be in tune. Why didn't they eat it? Well, when you come back and ask them, and they say, oh, well, I didn't order chicken. I ordered beef. You just brought the wrong meal. And this was something that happened in the beginning with the Japanese, because culturally Japanese don't complain. Now they're starting to stand up a little more, but there might be other cultures that don't complain. And it's very difficult to complain when you don't speak the language.
That's right, absolutely.
So all they'll do is go back and this isn't just for Hawaii, this is for other areas. Hawaii is a premier destination, but we charge premier prices too, in comparison to, say, Vietnam beaches or Thailand beaches. We all have sea, sand, and sun. And they call it the 4 S's: sea, sand, sun, and sex. 2 of the S's are gone now. The sex is gone because of all the problems, and the sun is gone too because we don't sit in the sun anymore. And no longer do people just come on vacation, get a Mai Tai, and just bake out in the sun. They want to learn something, or they want to do something, or want to experience something. And one of the biggest things they want to experience is the culture. Yeah. And they want to experience the culture from there, or taste the food from there. For instance, here at HPU, we have a new group from Okinawa that's here. A lot of people don't realize that, karate comes from Okinawa, or the Okinawan diet, the food. They have the largest percentage of centurions in the world. So if tourists go there, they should be looking at the food. That should be a major player. Why? Because for some reason, those people live longer, and it most likely has something to do with food.
I wonder if you could elaborate a little. You just touched briefly on this last part, and I know you've also touched on some of it in your research, and that is the sort of focus on travel and tourism now, that people want more. They want more of this culture. They want different,
Right. Because no longer is it just sitting on the beach or just sitting on the cruise ship. Even the cruise ships, that's an area that I think that it's going to continue to grow. There has been some challenges. We had a cruise ship that hit a reef, and we had, not here in Hawaii, but in the Mediterranean,
and then the other in the Gulf that had
a lot of fires.
Down,
then that's just somebody's not paying attention.
Yeah.
Putting the wrong gas in the diesel fuel and then causing a fire, and then people are stranded out there. But I think that's going to continue to grow, especially because of the baby boom generation, our generation. There's just so many of us, and as we get older, we don't want to pack and repack to see many destinations. And we have large expendable income. We're a very, very wealthy age group, not professors, but other people in our age group. And as we get older, that they want to get on a boat and then a ship. Sorry, they don't like to be called boat, ship. And they want to go to many places, and I think that it's going to continue to grow, that market. And with that, they want to experience more than just what's on the boat. You have now on the ship, you have people that are coming in to teach about culture on the ship. You have people coming to teach about, for instance, if you're here going through Alaska, they'll talk about the whales, the migration.
Yeah,
and
so more
people want to learn.
education
People want to learn.
yeah.
And especially people with children, like you have your 4 boys. When you took them on vacation, you want them to learn something. You want to get something out of it, not just to go in
Not
and
spend
see
their
it.
whole time on their little
Right,
iPhones.
and that's
yes.
a big challenge now with that generation,
Yeah.
because they're always on that. So if you can get something that they can bring back
Yeah.
with them.
No, that's right. So it is a changing area, and I think it's exciting on one hand because it has the potential to add more to these destinations. But it's a challenge. We have to meet, and we have to. Well, I guess especially for those of us in the education field, it's opportunities to kind of learn from that and share what others are doing.
But you have other challenges. For instance, in northern Thailand, like where I was just there was a type of festival where they did a dance once every 50 years. Now they do that dance every 3 days because tourists are there. It's just like
kind of cheapens it a little bit.
Yeah. And when they told me that, I said, they did this for a festival once every 50 years. Now they do it every 3 days.
Doesn't
And the same
seem
with
right.
us. We have, some luau's, the people are really into it, and then some luau's, you can see some people like, la la la, okay, they just, because they've been doing it for too long, and this is, it cheapens the culture, or it commoditizes it, where we make it into a commercial entity, and when people come to Hawaii, or if you go to New Orleans, for instance, come to Hawaii, you want to have a luau. You go to New Orleans, you want to see Mardi Gras. Well, Mardi Gras is a short
Once a
period,
year.
but they'll have it for you if you have a convention. You bring a convention there of professors, and it's December, they'll have a Mardi Gras parade for you. Maybe not in the street, they'll have it around the hotel, they'll have it in the ballroom, because people want to experience that part of the culture.
No, very fascinating. Well, I want to thank you so much. We're out of time, and unfortunately, we'll have to wrap it up here, but I know we'll continue this conversation. I'm Carlos Juarez. This is Global Connections in the ThinkTech radio series. We've been talking with Jerry Agrusa of Hawaii Pacific University about a range of issues related to tourism issues in Southeast Asia, but all around the world. I want to thank all of you for being here. Also, thanks to many who've made this show possible. We have Ian Davidson helping us with technical issues. Couldn't be done without Jared Schreiber as well, who's helped us set up.
Mahalo.
We've got our communications director, Chrissy Goffigan, and of course, Jay Fidel, who somehow puts it all together for us. And I want to thank you, our listeners, for listening. ThinkTech will be back next week, or on a regular basis here, our next show in the ThinkTech series. So please tune in again. If you want to get our daily email and social media advisories, click the link on thinktechhawaii.com. If you'd like to be a guest, a sponsor, or a ThinkTech underwriter, make sure to contact Jay at thinktechhawaii.com. Thanks so much. And remember, we broadcast live on the internet at 2 and at 4 every weekday. All of our shows are streamed on ustream.tv and Spreaker.com. If you want links to our live streams or previous broadcasts on YouTube, you can go to thinktechhawaii.com and go there to our Facebook page and tell them you like us. And of course, we'll see you next week for more on Global Connections. Aloha, everyone.
Aloha and mahalo.